That Akshara Brahman which is lustrous, subtler than the subtle, and which is wherein the realms and their dwellers reside, is the life of all. It is the cause of all speech and thought. It is constant and eternal. It should be attained. O Shanaka, make attaining it your goal. Exposition. The divine Akshara form of Akshara Brahman is extremely lustrous. The Chitakasha form of Akshara Brahman is subtler than even the subtle. Within this all-pervasive form reside all the mundane realms, such as Burloka, Bhuvaloka, Svarloka, Svetadvipa, and others, and all those who reside within these realms, the realms' occupants, rulers, and their followers. By upholding the realms and those that reside within them, Akshara Brahman serves as the life source for all. He is identified by Akshara, a term which means to be imperishable or to be pervasive, and referred to as such in numerous sacred texts. He is also identified by Brahman, which refers to one who is immense or one who sustains, and is referenced by it in many sacred texts. Akshara Brahman is identified as the vital breath of all, since he sustains all of creation. Here the masculine pronoun sa, the singular masculine nominative form of the pronoun tad, is used to refer to Akshara Brahman, since its complement prana is masculine in gender. The Upanishad continues by describing Akshara Brahman as the cause of all speech. Akshara Brahman is also identified as the mind, the cause of all thought. The above three descriptions of Akshara may also be read to express Akshara Brahman's governance over all those who possess bodies, since they demonstrate his control over the vital breath, speech, and mind, all which serve to sustain those who possess a body. In this way, Akshara Brahman is identified as the Atman and support of all. Akshara Brahman is also forever immutable in form, Satya, and hence also eternal, Amrita. The mantra may also be read to reveal Akshara to be Amrita-like, the immortalizing nectar, since he is the means for curing the great illness, the endless cycle of birth and death. Upon revealing Akshara's immense glory and importance, Angiras advises that one should attain Akshara Brahman just as an arrow unflinchingly seeks to attain its target. He exclaims, "Thus, O Shanaka, make that Akshara Brahman your aim. Strive to realize his form and nature as it truly is." Angiras compassionately addresses his disciple with the term samya to emphasize the significance of this revelation. Upon taking the great bow in the form of the Upanishads and knocking it with an arrow sharpened by Upasana, O Shanaka, draw it the arrow with a mind that is one with the target and attain the goal, which is that very Akshara. Exposition. Becoming engrossed in Akshara Brahman, the analogy of a bow. Having revealed that Akshara Brahman should be one's aim, the Upanishad further elaborates the manner in which one should attain this goal. In doing so, it presents an analogy of stringing a bow and hitting a target. Understand the bow to represent the Upanishads. This great bow is later referred to by Pranava, another term often used to refer to Akshara Brahman. That bow in the form of Pranava, Akshara Brahman, is the greatest weapon as it is the supreme means for attaining liberation, the goal. The goal of this Akshara Brahman is expressed within the Srutis. The arrow, later to be revealed as the Atman, is to be sharpened with Upasana of Parabrahman. Upasana involves, among other things, being continuously aware of one's Atman, as distinct from Maya in the form of the three bodies and the three states, and realizing, I am Akshara, the servant of Purushotama. Possessing such realization is the state of being Brahmarupa. It is attained through the association of Akshara Brahman itself. The term Hai only within the mantra emphasizes that 1. Contemplating oneself as Brahman, and 2. Practicing the Upasana of Parabrahman are the only means for the Atman to attain Brahman, its final goal. Liberation is unattainable without both. The Upanishad advises one to knock the sharpened arrow into the bow, then to draw or anchor the arrow. Here, to draw means to associate completely. One should then become one with the target, think of nothing but the target, or think of nothing but attaining it. Becoming one with the target may also be understood to mean to continually experience oneself to be Akshara Brahman. Just as an archer takes up a bow, readies, nocks it with an arrow, draws the string to his ear, and while being careful to maintain both contact between the bow and arrow and unwavering focus on only the goal, he hits the mark. Similarly, a spiritual aspirant should take the Akshara Brahman Guru, the bow, knock it with the arrow in the form of one's Atman, draw the string, attain complete association with the Guru, while being careful to maintain both the association between one's Atman and Akshara Brahman, and unwavering focus on only the target, the divine Akshara Daman. Release the arrow and attain liberation, the goal. Angiras concludes as if revealing, O Shanaka, you should attain that goal which is none other than the Akshara Brahman entity that has been already described. Pranava is the bow, the Atman is the arrow, and Akshara Daman is the goal. One should carefully pierce it, the goal, and engross oneself into it like the arrow. Exposition. The Upanishad proceeds by clarifying each identification made in the analogy. The bow is representative of Pranava, Akshara Brahma's form as the Guru, which is repeatedly described within the Upanishads. The arrow is identified with the self, Atman, the various Jivatmans and Ishvaratmans seeking to attain liberation. The target is understood as the divine Akshara Daman form of Akshara Brahman. Piercing the target refers to attaining Akshara Dahman. Attaining Brahmabhava or liberation. Brahmabhava, the state of experiencing oneself as Brahman, Akshara, is attained by acquiring firm association with the Guru, the manifest form of Akshara Brahman. One should persistently strive to attain the target. Such persistence involves overcoming any desire for satisfying worldly pleasures. Therefore, one should strive carefully to attain the goal within antakarana, mental faculties, that has no worldly desires and is entirely focused on the goal described. Moreover, just as a released arrow penetrates the target and upon entering it cannot be separated, spiritual aspirants should firmly attach their Atman to Brahman. One may question that if Purusottama is the ultimate goal, then why does the mantra identify Brahman, Akshara Brahman, as the final goal? There is no doubt that Purusottama, the Lord of Akshara, is the ultimate goal. Nevertheless, since Purusottama is forever present in his divine abode, Brahmadaman, Akshara Dahman, the desire to attain Parabrahman encompasses the desire to attain Brahmadaman. This is similar to how wanting to meet one's beloved in some village also includes wanting to reach or attain that village. It is also similar to how desiring to attain gold, gems, and other precious materials affixed to a casket includes wanting the casket itself. Furthermore, Parabrahman Swaminarayan also affirms attaining Akshara Daman, the abode form of Akshara Brahman, as the goal within his teachings. By analogizing Akshara Brahman with the goal in this mantra, the Upanishad reveals Akshara to be distinct from the Jivas and Ishvaras, who are identified as the arrow. Vyasji presents further discussion on this topic within the Brahma Sutras. In which Dioloka, the earth, the realms of space, the mind with all the pranas reside, know that one Akshara Brahman as one's Atman. Renounce all other talks, that Akshara Brahman is the bridge to Paramatman. Exposition. Within this mantra, the Upanishad once again describes Akshara Brahman as the support of all and as essential to attain Paramatman. The mantra focuses its revelation on the Chittakasha form of Akshara Brahman. This Chittakasha form is described as containing 1. Dioloka, 2. The earth, 3. The realms of space, 4. The mind, along with 5. All the pranas, prana, apana, and others, which sustain the body, and 6. All animate and inanimate creation. Brahman is thus identified as the support of all, it governs all. This is revealed in the Shastras. Realize one Akshara Brahman to be the Atman of even one's own Atman. By contemplating the Satpurusha Guru is my Atman, while engaging in such reflection one should become Brahmarupa. This portion of the mantra may alternatively be taken to reveal that one should realize one Akshara Brahman as the Atman of Dioloka, the earth and all others. The mantra's mention of Aika seeks to establish that although Akshara Brahman possesses 4 forms, which are distinguished from one another by their various functions, there is only one Akshara Brahman entity. The Upanishad continues by advising one to renounce all other talks that do not aid in attaining Brahma Vidya. These dejected talks include those that are 1. Related to matters other than the Akshara Brahman Guru, who completely represents Parabrahman, 2. Related to matters of the mundane world and pleasures, and 3. Merely concerned with spiritual debate. Occupying oneself in such worldly matters does not help one attain Paravidya and is a waste of precious time. Akshara Brahman, the bridge to Parabrahman. The rejection of all worldly talks is based on the significance of the Akshara Brahman Guru in realizing Paramatman. Only the Akshara Brahman Guru, who is the Atman of all, is the bridge or means towards attaining Parabrahman. In other words, the Akshara Brahman Guru is the means for overcoming the ocean of samsara and attaining Parabrahman Sahajananda. Just as a bridge helps one easily cross a raging river, the Akshara Brahman Guru, through his association and teachings, aids disciples to cross the difficult, misery-filled ocean of life and death. In doing so, he helps them across to the opposite shore and attain Paramatman Sahajananda. Within the Katha Upanishad, the deity of death, Yama himself, also uses the same analogy to identify Akshara as the bridge or means to attaining the immortal. This mantra clarifies that Paramatman cannot be attained without the Brahmasvarupa Guru. The Upanishad mantra also presents an ontological revelation by identifying Brahman as a bridge, Maya as the turbulent waters that are crossed, the Jivas and Ishvaras as those who traverse the bridge, and Paramatman as the opposite bank that is reached. The mantra affirms each as ontologically distinct entities. That Akshara is present where the vessels of the holy converge, like a hub, where the spokes of a chariot wheel converge. From it springs forth diverse creation. That Aksharam Atman is Aum. Meditate upon it to attain that which is beyond Maya. That is your liberation. Exposition. The Upanishad reiterates that Akshara Brahman is present within the heart of the devotee, Upashaka, and should be contemplated upon. Just as the spokes of a chariot wheel converge at the hub, the vessels of the body converge at the heart. This is where the Chidakasha form of Akshara Brahman, which is the Atman of all, is present. This is mentioned many times within other sacred texts. According to Paramatman's wish, Akshara Brahman is the cause of creation. It results by his mere resolution for it to occur. For this reason, Akshara may be said to manifest as diverse creation. The Mundaka Upanishad revealed Akshara Brahman's role in creation earlier within the text, meditating on Akshara Brahman. The Upanishad reveals that Akshara Atman, who also referred to as Aum or Pranava, should be meditated upon. As in other instances within sacred texts, Aum often refers to Akshara. Meditating on Akshara Brahman is emphasized because of its role in 1. Instilling the realization of Akshara Brahma within one's Atman, and 2. Experiencing Paramatman's supreme bliss. The meditation consists of continuously being aware of the Guru as the manifest form of not only Akshara Brahman, but also, according to the Shruti, Yasya Deve Paro Bhaktiyatha Deve Tathagurau, Param Atman. The Upanishad advocates that intense contemplation or meditation leads towards realization. The Upanishad's instruction to meditate on Brahman includes engaging in reflection on the divine qualities, characteristics, deeds, gestures, and features of the manifest form of Brahman, who is the complete beholder of Parabrahman. This is identified as associating with Brahman through contemplation. The Upanishad then explains the reason for contemplating on Brahman by describing its effects. It reveals that by contemplating on Brahman, one attains Parabrahman, who is eternally beyond Maya and the ultimate eternal goal. Recall from the analogy presented in the previous mantra, Parabrahman was likened with the opposite shore, which one attains upon traversing a bridge, acquiring association with the Akshara Brahman Guru. Thus the words Amritasyaisa Setu reaffirm the revelation Brahmavid apnoti param, provided within the Taittiriya Upanishad. The final portion of the mantra, "That is your liberation," may be read as an expression of the teacher's blessings for his disciples. It is as if Angiras blesses, "O disciples, may you who have listened to the glory of Akshara Purushotama in this manner attain ultimate liberation." That Akshara Brahman, who is all-knowing and whose glory is renowned on earth, resides within the divine abode called Brahmapura. He possesses divine hands, feet, and other human-like features, and also resides within the heart of the body. By realizing him, the wise realize the blissful and eternal Parabrahman, who radiates in all places. Exposition. The Upanishad again describes 4 forms of the Akshara Brahman in a single mantra and asserts that by knowing them one attains Paramatman. The mantra describes Akshara Brahmatman as all-knowing and asserts that his glory, as mentioned, is renowned throughout the world. The reference to Akshara Brahman made here is of the Guru. The glory mentioned refers to the glory of the Guru previously revealed within this Upanishad. This glory includes the Akshara Brahman Guru's ability to 1. Free spiritual aspirants from worldly miseries, 2. Rid them of mundane vices such as lust and anger, 3. Make them pure and Brahmarupa, 4. And instill within them the highest level of unwavering faith in the manifest form of Paramatman. Akshara Brahman within a human-like form in the divine abode. The phrase Divya Brahmapure Hai describes Akshara Brahman's form that resides within Paramatman's divine abode. It refers to the form of Akshara Brahman that resides within Akshara Daman, Esha Vyomnyatma Pratishita, as Paramatman's personal attendant. This form is human-like and complete with all limbs as Paramatman's personal attendant. He possesses divine hands, feet, and other human-like parts. The glory of this form is also extolled within the Chandogya Upanishad. The phrase Pratishitone Pridayam Sanidaya then describes the Chidakasha form of Akshara Brahman. Through this form, Akshara Brahmanatman is revealed as present within the heart of the body. Tadvijnanana thereafter reveals that one attains Paramatman by truly realizing Brahman. It states that by realizing the 4 forms of Brahman and its divine qualities and nature, devotees who 1. Remain composed in difficult times, 2. Have acquired spiritual wisdom from the Brahmasvarupa Guru himself, 3. And are immersed in the upasana of the manifest form of Paramatman, realize the infinitely blissful, divine, and eternal form of Parabrahman Sahajnanda. This divine form of Parabrahman that resides within Akshardhaman, his divine abode, is brilliant. By pervading within all and possessing the ability to control all things, he radiates throughout infinite Brahmandas. Within the mantra, the term Amrita is used to describe Parabrahman as eternal. This description is presented earlier in the Upanishad. To summarize, the mantra reveals that by realizing Brahman, a devotee, Upashaka, imbibes the virtues of the Brahmarupa and comes to realize Paramatman. A similar revelation is presented within the Taittiriya Upanishad. Upon realizing Paramatman, the desires of the heart are destroyed, all doubts are shattered, and all karmas are annihilated. Exposition. The benefits of realizing Parabrahman. The Upanishad continues by describing the fruits of becoming Brahmarupa and realizing Parabrahman upon having realized Brahman. The Upanishad describes Paramatman with the compound Paravara. Paravara is formed from combining the terms para and avara. Para refers to Akshara Brahman, who is superior para to jivas, ishvaras, maya, and Akshara Muktas. On the other hand, avara means one who is inferior. When both terms are combined to form paravata, the compound refers to one for whom the superior Akshara Brahman is inferior, Paramatman. When one, through the Brahmasvarupa Guru's association and by imbibing his teachings, realizes the Paravara Paramatman, one's Hridaya Granthi become destroyed. One is freed from all ignorance, doubts, and delusions. Such a Brahmarupa devotee is also freed from their karmas. A Granthi is a knot. The Hridaya Granthi refers to that which ties the heart, Hridaya, like a knot and results in misery. It refers to worldly desires that are firmly rooted and eternally plague the self, Atman. Tying the self like a knot, it results in misery and the endless cycle of births and deaths. The mantra also reveals that upon realizing Paramatman, the karmas of a Brahmarupa devotee are annihilated. Karmas are the cause of all grief. Through Paramatman realization, they, like burnt seeds, are rendered effective. That Akshara Brahman resides in the supreme and lustrous abode, it is free of the three qualities, gunas, unchanging and beautiful. It is the luster of the luminous and known by those who have realized Brahman. Exposition. In the remaining three mantras of the section, Kanda, the Upanishad continues to reveal the glory of the various forms of Akshara Brahman. It begins by recalling the two forms previously described by the phrases Mahatpadamatretat Samarpitam and Divye Brahmapure Hayesha. The Upanishad reveals that Akshara Brahman, in the form of an ideal personal attendant of Paramatman, eternally resides within the lustrous divine abode, Akshara Dhamman, which is yet another form of Akshara Brahman. Akshara Dhamman is the supreme abode, since it is the abode of the divine supreme entity, Parabrahman. The attendant form of Akshara Brahman is free of the three qualities, gunas, of Maya. Its form is unchanging and eternal. All of its features are magnificent, and it is radiant and absolutely pure. It is the source of brilliance for those who are lustrous. Compared to all worldly light, it reigns as exceptionally radiant. Those who are spiritually enlightened and those who have realized Brahman realize this form of Akshara Brahman as described above. For this reason, Angiras advises that all should also know it as such. The sun does not shine there, neither does the moon, nor the stars. Lightning does not flash there. Then what can be said of mere fire? Everything that shines, shines because of it. All of this is illumined by its radiance. Exposition. Akshara Brahman, the source of illumination. The sun, which is renowned as the light source of our solar system, does not shine within that supreme, divine, and lustrous abode, Akshara Dhamman. Stated differently, the brilliance of Akshara Dhamman is so great that the sun's light becomes insignificant. The moon and the stars also do not shine there, nor does lightning flash there. If those that illuminate our solar system are rendered insignificant and do not have any effect there, then what more remains to be said about the mundane fire, which emanates comparatively little light? All that shines, the sun, the moon, and the stars, does so according to Akshara Brahman's will. They are all dependent upon him, since all things that are seen as radiant are so by a mere fraction of that infinitely radiant Akshara's divine light. Brahman thus governs the brilliance of all things. This eternal Brahman pervades in front and behind, to the right and the left, above and below. Brahman is the Atman of this entire creation. It is superior. Exposition. Akshara Brahman's omnipresence. The Chidakasha form of Brahman is the cause of all. This was described earlier in Upanishadic revelations such as Aksharat Sambhavatiha Vishvam and Aksharat Vividasomya Bhava Prajayante. It is also described as omnipresent by Sharvagatam and other revelations within sacred texts. Mantras such as Yasmiloka Nihita Lokinaska describe this form as the support of all. As such, it is indeed the Atman within all. The second section, Kanda, and thus the second chapter, Mundaka of the Upanishad, concludes by describing the Chidakasha form of Akshara Brahman as the Atman of all creation. In its Chidakasha form, this eternal Brahman pervades in all directions. It pervades to the front, behind, to the right and left, and above and below. This Akshara Brahman is thus the Atman of all creation, and is therefore also superior to it. Furthermore, since realizing Akshara Brahman is essential to attaining Parabrahman, Akshara Brahman is also worthy of being known by all. The second section, Kanda, and the second chapter, Mundaka of the Upanishad concludes with this revelation. Two birds closely united as friends reside on the same tree. One eats the tasteful fruits while the other eats nothing yet shines radiantly. Exposition. The third chapter, Mundaka, commences by, once again, expounding the entities Akshara and Purushottama. It begins by describing Brahman's unique ability to remain aloof from karmas, despite residing within the hearts of all jivas and Ishvaras. Two close friends. The Upanishad speaks metaphorically of two birds. When analyzed, the term Suparna refers to a bird, that which has beautiful wings, parno. Although within Sanskrit the dual form of nominals inherently implies two, the specific mention of two in the mantra is intentioned to demonstrate that there are two ontologically distinct entities, one the bound Atman and two Akshara Brahman. Just as two birds live on the same tree, the individual Atman and Akshara Brahman live in the same body. The two birds represent the self, Atman, and Akshara Brahman. They are described as having acquired close friendship, since they share many similarities. For example, they are both eternal entities. One may speculate that if they both live within the same body, then they must also both partake in the fruits of karmas. However, the mantra explains that only one of them, via the bound self, Atman, experiences the good and bad fruits of karma, while the other remains entirely unaffected by them. Within the mantra, the term svadhu may express either that the fruits experienced have diverse of taste, are distinct, or are consumed affectionately with pleasure. Akshara Brahman is represented as the other bird in the metaphor presented within the mantra. He is distinct from the Atman, who is bound by karmas. According to Paramatman's wish, Akshara Brahman pervades the body using his power to govern and control while residing within Antaryamana Shakti. Unlike the bound Atmans, he does not suffer the consequences of karmas and happily and radiantly shines. He is eternally above Maya and is its controller. The repeated use of the term Anya within the mantra reasserts Akshara Brahman as ontologically distinct from the Jivatmans and Ishvaratmans. Paramatman resides on the same tree, yet the Atman, deluded by Maya, grieves. If it realizes the glory of the blissful other, Akshara Brahmatman, and the blissful Paramatman, it will be freed from grief. Exposition. A third companion. Like Akshara Brahman, Parabrahman also resides within the hearts of bound Atmans and remains unaffected by their karmas. The Upanishad reveals that Paramatman also resides on the same tree within the body. As in previous instances and forthcoming occurrences, the term Purusha refers to Paramatman. The mantra's repeated mention of on that same tree implies that it will reveal that there is another being on the tree who is distinct from the two, Akshara Brahman and the Atman, mentioned in the previous mantra. This ontologically distinct entity is Paramatman. Thus, just as the bound Atman and Akshara Brahman reside within the heart, Paramatman, who is superior to Akshara, also resides within the same heart. The term Nimagna asserts that Paramatman pervades within each Atman as its Atman and controller. Even though Brahman and Parabrahman reside together with the Atman remains ignorant and deluded by Maya. Maya deceives the Atman by making it 1. Believe that the body is the self, Atman, 2. Become attached to mundane pleasures, and 3. Unable to discern between, among others, what is beneficial and harmful on the path towards liberation, what is true and false, and what is animate and inanimate. Such ignorance results in grief. One laments, "Oh, I have lost my wealth, my wife is dead, my child is disabled, no one listens to me, I never attain anything good," and questions, "What should I do?" When spiritual aspirants, who are immersed in grief caused by such eternal ignorance, realize the glory of the blissful Akshara Brahmatman and Paramatman through the Brahmasvarupa Guru's association and teachings, they become freed from all grief. The mantra's use of justa refers to that which is ever blissful. The term is derived from the base verbal root jusi, which means to be pleased or served. Anya, meaning the other, refers to the previously mentioned Akshara Brahmatman, who is identified as ontologically distinct from the Jivatmans and Ishvaratmans. Isha refers to Paramatman, the master of all Atmans. All three terms, Justa, Anya, and Isha, may also be read to describe both Akshara and Purusattama. When read in this way, Justa refers to one who is ever blissful, Anya describes one who is distinct from Jivatmans and Ishvaratmans, and Isha refers to both Akshara Brahmatman and Paramatman, who are the masters of all Jivatmans and Ishvaratmans and Maya. A spiritual aspirant who realizes the glory of the blissful Akshara Brahmatman and Paramatman in this manner, 1. Rises beyond the three qualities, gunas, of Maya, 2. Attains virtues like those of Brahman, and 3. Becomes in this very life free of all misery caused by Maya, while alive they become liberated. Thus Brahma Vidya, in the form of conviction of the two divine entities, Akshara and Purusattama, as revealed by Yenaksharam Purusham Veda, is established by this Upanishadic mantra as the means to becoming free of grief and ignorance. When the seer understands the golden Purusattama, who is the all-doer, controller, and the cause of Brahman, that wise person becomes free of their merits and sins, and upon having no mundane desires, attains an entirely similar state. Exposition. The Upanishad continues by describing the state of the liberated, amukta, when the seer Jivatman or Ishvaratman, through the association of the Brahmasvarupa Guru and his teachings, realizes the golden Purusha, who is the cause and controller of all creation and the inspirer of Brahman. He, the seer, sheds both his good and bad karmas, and upon becoming free of worldly desires, attains an extremely similar state. Note, the seer is to be read in context of the discussion presented in the previous mantra. Recall, the Upanishad revealed earlier that one who sees or realizes the glory of Akshara Brahmatman and Paramatman will be freed from grief. The present mantra continues to reveal other fruits that are attained by such a person when it states, when the seer. The golden Purusha is Paramatman. Based on previous usages, the Upanishad uses the term Purusha to refer to Paramatman. Golden implies that Paramatman's divine body is ever radiant like gold. Paramatman is also described as being golden in other Upanishadic revelations. This description also affirms that Purusattama possesses permanent form. The mantra's mention of the adjective Niranjana qualifies the wise who come to realize Paramatman's form. As Niranjana, they are described as free of Anjana, blemish, and Maya, or mundane desires, attaining extreme similarity. The mantra states that the wise attain a state that is very similar to that of Paramatman. Among others, this involves attaining qualities such as 1. Being free of misery, 2. Becoming unattached, 3. Becoming above the three qualities, gunas, of Maya, and 4. Experiencing utmost divine bliss. It is also important to recognize that similar, as opposed to strict identity, asserts that a distinction will always remain between the liberated self and Paramatman. All Jivatmans and Ishvaratmans, whether they are bound by Maya or liberated from it, remain eternally ontologically distinct from Paramatman. They will always remain as separate entities. Furthermore, attaining a state that is similar to that of Paramatman is no different to attaining a state that is similar to Akshara Brahman. The similarities attained are the same in both cases, implying that the distinction between them also always remains. In fact, if Brahma Yonin is read as separate, then Brahman may be understood as a referent of Akshara Brahman. In this reading, then, the adjectives Rukmavarna, Kartara, Isha, and Yoni may all be understood to describe the qualities of both entities, Purusha and Brahman, Akshara Brahman. The mantra then may be read as, when a Jivatman or Ishvaratman understands the ever-radiant, divine-bodied Paramatman and Akshara Brahman, who are the efficient cause, the material cause, and the controllers of creation, then that wise person, Jivatman or Ishvaratman, becomes free of their merits and sins, and upon having no mundane desires, attains a state that is similar to that of the superior Akshara Brahman and Parabrahman. That Paramatman is indeed the life of all. One who knows him to shine through all beings becomes wise and does not speak untruth. They remain engrossed in Paramatman and devoted to him. A person who performs actions in this way is supreme among those who know Brahmavidya. Exposition. The Upanishad describes the manner in which the wise know Paramatman. The mantra reveals that Paramatman is the prana, the prime vital breath, the sustainer of all life. Although the prana may be further categorized into prana, apana, and others, mantras such as pranasya prana assert that Paramatman is the prana, the prime prana of even the prana. One who realizes through the teachings of the Brahmasvarupa Guru, Paramatman to shine through all, becomes wise, becomes realized, and does not become an Ativadi. Paramatman radiates through all by pervading within all, from Brahman to even a tuft of grass, and being the Atman of all. An Ativadi is one who oversteps the truth and speaks fallaciously. An Ativadi out of ignorance states that which is incorrect. For instance, he may state, 1. The body is itself the Atman, 2. Worldly pleasures are the pathway to supreme happiness, or 3. There is no Paramatman. If he believes in the existence of Paramatman, the Ativadi may assert that 4. Paramatman is not the all-doer, 5. He, Paramatman, does not have a form, or that 6. He, Paramatman, does not reside within Aksharadaman. He may also claim 7. There is no Aksharadaman, or that 8. There is no one within Aksharadaman that is worshipped by the liberated Muktas and Akshara Brahman. He may even say 9. I myself am Parabrahman. By virtue of imbibing the teachings of the Guru within themselves, the wise are free from such delusions and realize the true nature of Paramatman, Akshara Brahman, and the Self, Atman. For this reason, they do not become like the Ativadis described. If bhava is alternatively understood to be conjugated in the imperative mood, then the first sentence of the mantra would be rendered as, one may be called wise only if they realize Paramatman to reside in all beings and to be the vital breath of all. Thus you too should become an Ativadi with respect to Paramatman. When read in this manner, an Ativadi is identified as one who describes Paramatman as greater than all others. Such an Ativadi only extols Paramatman's glory by saying, for example, Paramatman alone is the highest of all. Only he is the ultimate goal. The revelation, Esha Tuva Etivadati Ya Satyena Tivadati, expressed within Nirada's narrative in the Chandogya Upanishad, supports this interpretation. The Upanishad continues by revealing that such an upashaka of Paramatman is Atmakrita and Atmarati. Atmakrita refers to one who takes pleasure only in Paramatman, the Atman of all, and not from one's family, wealth, house, and other worldly attainments. Atmarati refers to one who has utmost devotion to Paramatman alone. A person who performs all actions in this manner, by associating all actions with Paramatman, and possess the sole intent to please him, is a true karma yogi. For this reason, one who realizes Paramatman as such and performs actions in this way is supreme among those who are on the path of attaining Brahmavidya. That Paramatman is eternally attainable by truthfulness, penance, complete knowledge, and contemplation of Brahman. That Paramatman indeed resides in the body and is radiant and pure. The flawless and self-controlled realize him. Exposition. The Upanishad proceeds to reveal other supporting endeavors that aid in realizing Paramatman. The mantra reveals that Paramatman, the Atman of all, is always attainable by truthfulness, penance, complete knowledge, and the contemplation of Brahman. Truthfulness involves avoiding lying and speaking truth that is unfaltering, precise, and beneficial. Penance refers to possessing control over the inner and outer faculties. Complete knowledge means possessing spiritual knowledge in the form of Brahmavidya. This knowledge, Brahmavidya, is described within sacred texts. It is attained by cultivating firm association with the manifest Brahmasvarupa Guru and adhering to his teachings. Since self-control, implied by the practice of penance suggested earlier, includes the practice of celibacy, brahmacharya, used in the mantra, takes on a meaning that is different than its typical reference to the practice of celibacy. Here, brahmacharya refers instead to the meditation of the self as Brahman. This involves engaging in, among other things, contemplating and reflecting that I am Brahman, and my Atman is Brahman. Such brahmacharya is practiced in order to become Brahmarupa, a state necessary for realizing Paramatman. The above endeavors are representative of all endeavors, including acquiring humility, faith, and others that aid in realizing Paramatman. The mantra continues by describing Paramatman as present within the heart. He is revealed as filled with infinite divine luster, and as a result, pure, eternally free of Maya, and with a magnificent form. By the grace of the Guru, the flawless, self-controlled devotees, upasakas of Paramatman, become Brahmarupa and realize the aforementioned Paramatman. Truth alone is victorious, not untruth. The long Devayana path is attained by truth. The rishis who have attained all traverse on that path and arrive where the supreme reservoir of truth resides. Exposition. The revelation Satyena Labhya of the previous mantra is reaffirmed here. Only truth that is unfaltering, precise, and beneficial is eternally victorious. Truth that is faltering, imprecise, or disadvantageous is surely not victorious. Why is this the case? It is because truth is another form of the supreme eternal principle, Siddhanta. Although untruthfulness, because of its shrewdness, may occasionally appear to be effective in the short run, it will not be for all situations or for all time. Truth or untruth do not themselves become victorious or defeated, but rather the one who speaks them does. Truth and untruth are merely the means to attain these ends. Ultimately, the speaker of truth reigns victorious, while the one who embraces untruth is left defeated. The extensive Devayana path is described within the Upanishads as the Archai path, which leads towards Aksharadhaman and Paramatman's abode. This path is also attained by adhering to the eternal and unfaltering principles, Siddhanta, a form of truth. The mantra then reveals the destination of what is attained by those who traverse this Archai path. It states that the rishis, Brahmarupa realized devotees of Parabrahman, who have attained everything by attaining the manifest form of Paramatman, travel on the Devyana Archai path and arrive at the supreme location that is worthy of being attained. It is called Aksharadhaman. Param Atman, the supreme reservoir of truth and all divine qualities, resides within this divine abode. The mantra reveals that the rishis who have acquired virtues, such as truthfulness, traverse the Archai path and arrive at the divine location identified as Aksharadhaman. Purushottama, Sahajananda, who is an ocean of divine virtues, resides within this Aksharadhaman. It, Akshara, is great, divine, and imperceptible. It gleams as subtler than even the subtle. It is farther than the far, yet it is also near. The wise realize it within their hearts. Exposition. Akshara as the supreme abode of Paramatman, the destination for the liberated Muktatmans, was mentioned in the previous mantra with the words Tad and Yatra. The current mantra proceeds by continuing to describe this Aksharadhaman. Akshara, the immense yet subtle. Akshara is eternally superior to the Jivas and Ishvaras in terms of its form, characteristics, virtues, and abilities. For this reason it is identified as Brahman. It is divine, not of this world. It is also imperceptible by the worldly senses. As it is not perceptible by worldly contemplation, it is also beyond reason. That Akshara Brahman, in its Chidakasha form, shines subtler than the subtle, since it pervades other sentient beings, Jivatmans and Ishvaratmans, who are themselves extremely subtle. It is subtler than the subtle. As the divine abode of Paramatman and the form of Paramatman's attendant within that abode, that same Akshara entity is also further than the far. It is beyond the extremely distant darkness. As the manifest form of the Guru, that same Akshara also resides extremely close to us here in this world. The bliss of its proximity is easily experienced from this form. It may be experienced by having the Guru's darshana, receiving his sanctified remnants, hearing the discourses and meeting with him. Farther than the far, yet it is also near, may also be read to describe the pervasiveness of Akshara Brahman's Chidakasha form. By being all-pervasive, this Chidakasha form may be described as being both close and far away. That very Akshara resides as the inner controller here in the hearts of those who have realized Brahman. In fact, Akshara Brahman pervades within all, whether they are wise or ignorant. Nevertheless, the term pasyatsu in the mantra asserts that only the wise experience his presence, not the ignorant. Once again, the four forms of Akshara are expounded in a single mantra. It, Paramatman, is not perceptible to the eyes, by speech, by the deities of the senses, by karmas, or by penance. However, it, which is faultless, is realized by grace and meditation performed with a pure heart. Exposition. Having already revealed Satyena Labhyastapasa Hayesha Atma Samyagjnanana and Yampasyanti Sindosha, the Upanishad refers to the principal topic of the section. It continues by describing how Paramatman is realized. The Upanishad reveals that Paramatman is not realized by worldly eyes, because the eyes can only perceive worldly objects. He can neither be described by worldly speech. The deities of these senses, which include Indra, Chandra, and others, also cannot realize him. Neither can Paramatman be attained by penance. The more observance of austerities, such as Taptakretra, which emaciate the body, nor can it be attained by the mere performance of Vedic karmas such as the Ashvamedha. This may seem to contradict revelations such as Tanyacharatha Niyatam Satyakama and Labhyastapasa Hayesha Atmu, which identify penance and karma as means to attain Paramatman. If these revelations are true, why are penance and karma being demeaned within this mantra? There is, however, no contradiction. The present mantra degrades the value of penance and karma, that is, 1, performed without any relation to the divine manifest Akshara Purusattama, and 2, not in accordance with the sacred text, Shastras, taught by the Brahmasvarupa Guru. The Upanishad then continues by revealing the means by which Paramatman may be attained. It asserts Jnana Prasadena too. He is, however, attained by the grace of Brahman and Parabrahman, who are themselves the form of knowledge. This may alternatively read to assert that Paramatman is attained by the knowledge of Brahma Vidya obtained from the association of the Brahmasvarupa Guru. The mantra reveals one who has a pure antakarana, mental faculties, which is free from Maya's influence, and who meditates on the manifest form of Paramatman. With that pure intellect sees, realizes Paramatman, who is devoid of mundane traits and full of divine traits in one's Brahmarupa Atman. The use of the indeclinable term tu, meaning but or however, identifies Jnana Prasada as principle for attaining realization. The Atman is infinitesimal. It should be known through the intellect. The 5 types of prana depend upon it. Along with the pranas, the chitta of a person is also dependent upon it. When it becomes pure, that Atman becomes special. Exposition. Having revealed that each Atman can see, realize Paramatman by meditating upon it with a pure heart, the Upanishad takes the opportunity to describe the individual self, Atman, the infinitesimal Atman. The mantra reveals that the self, Atman, the Jivatman, or Ishvaratman, is like an atom, infinitesimal in size. This Atman should be realized, 1, with an intellect that is purified by the grace of Brahman and Parabrahman, and 2, through the association and teachings of the Brahmasvarupa Guru. The Upanishad then elaborates on the importance of the Atman within the body. Within a person, the 5 types of prana depend on the Atman. Along with the pranas, the chitta, one of the faculties of the antakarana, the faculties of the mind, is also dependent upon it. When that Atman becomes pure by associating with the Brahmasvarupa Guru and by imbibing his teachings, it becomes special. It becomes capable of attaining Brahma Bhava, which is necessary for practicing supreme upasana towards Paramatman. Here, the Shruti itself reveals the Atman as infinitesimal. Therefore, those that say the Atman is unlimited in size or equivalent to the measure of the body it resides in stand in opposition to the teaching of the Shrutis. The pure-hearted attain whatever realm they think of and whatever pleasures they desire. Therefore, those who desire miraculous powers should indeed revere those who have realized Paramatman. Exposition. The Upanishad concludes this section, Kanda, by revealing the fruits attained by a devotee, Upashaka, who possesses a pure antakarana, inner faculties, and realizes Paramatman and Akshara Brahman as previously described. Those with an antakarana purified by the grace of Brahman and Parabrahman attain whatever realm, loka, and whatever pleasures they desire. It is important to point out, however, that it is impossible for a Brahma-rupa devotee to possess any desire to attain worldly realms or pleasures. As a result, this revelation should be understood as extolling the significance of realizing Paramatman. Since one who realizes Paramatman can attain whatever realm and enjoy whatever pleasures they desire, one who seeks to attain miraculous powers should assuredly reveal Paramatman's Brahmasvarupa devotee, one who has realized Paramatman. He, the pure-hearted devotee, knows that supreme Brahmadaman wherein creation rests, and which shines pure. The wise who have no desires and worship Paramatman overcome the seed of birth, are not reborn. Exposition. Within this section, Kanda, the Upanishad reaffirms the significance of Brahma Vidya by again describing its various features. It begins by recalling the need to realize both Akshara and Purusattama as described earlier by the mantra Yanaksaram Purusam Veda, and continues to reveal the means by which they are both attained. The Upanishad states that the devotee previously described as 1. Possessing a pure heart, and 2. Having attained Brahmabhava by the grace of Brahman and Parabrahman, realizes the supreme abode known as Brahmadaman. This Brahmadaman is none other than the divine abode of Parabrahman. The mantra mentions the demonstrative adjective this, etat, as a qualifier of Brahmadama, to highlight Brahmadana as a referent to a subject that was previously described by the Upanishad. Specifically, it indicates Brahmadaman as Parabrahman's divine abode, Akshara-daman. This abode is identified as supreme because it is superior to all other abodes. Where all is divine, the Upanishad reveals that Akshara-daman, the supreme abode, is wherein infinite Brahmandas rest, in whose control all creation rests. Since it is extremely brilliant, extraordinary, and divine, it radiates with innocence and purity. The mantra may be alternatively read to assert Paramatman, his greatest devotee, Akshara Brahman, in the form of Paramatman's attendant, and the liberated muktas, who have attained Brahmadbhava, all reside within Akshara-daman. By being free of Maya, they are all radiant with innocence and purity. There is only negligible happiness in the abodes of the various deities, devatas. Despite having some happiness, these deities and their abodes are all afflicted by misery because of their association with the mundane. These realms are inferior to the supremely divine Akshara-daman because they are bound by Maya and lack the ultimate bliss of Paramatman Sahajananda. Purusha, mentioned within the mantra, refers to the Lord of Akshara-daman, Sahajananda Paramatman. He resides within that divine Akshara-daman. Those devotees who possess no desires besides pleasing Paramatman and are steady-minded, Sthita-prajna, and Brahmarupa are engrossed in supreme devotion towards Paramatman. These devotees, upasakas, who have attained spiritual insight by the association of the Brahmasvarupa Guru, overcome the seed of birth, are freed from the cycle of birth and death. Shukru may also be read as an adjective of Purusha. When this is done, it means one who is free from grief. The last section of the mantra is then read as, they who worship the ever-blissful Paramatman transcend the miseries of the world. One who believes in pleasures and desires them is born according to those desires. One who feels they have attained all and is content is indeed here free from all desires. Exposition. The Upanishad venerates the aforementioned devotees who possess no desires by describing the inferior fruits that are attained by others who possess desires. The mantra explains one who constantly believes, 1. That worldly pleasures such as sounds, touch, and beauty that they either have or have not experienced will bring them happiness, and 2. Mistakenly believe, oh, this sound is pleasing to my ears, this taste is amazing, the supreme joy of touch is indescribable, this seems more and more beautiful day by day, and this smell makes me happy, and thus longs for those pleasures, repeatedly takes birth as various species. Having taken birth, they continue to experience such worldly desires. Liberation in this world. One who is content with attaining Paramatman's manifest form and no longer desires for worldly pleasures possesses conviction in Paramatman and has accomplished what is to be accomplished. By the Brahmasvarupa Guru's grace, all desires, with the exception of those regarding pleasing and serving Paramatman, of such a Brahmarupa devotee, Upasaka, are removed here in this world whilst they are alive. In this manner, those with Brahmavidya attain the state of Jivanmukti, the state of liberation whilst alive. This Paramatman is not attainable, realized by discourses, intelligence, or vast listening. He is only attainable by those he accepts. That Paramatman reveals his divine form to them. Exposition. Having described various means by realizing Paramatman, the Upanishad continues by revealing what is necessary among all of them to attain such realization. The Upanishad asserts that Paramatman cannot be realized by merely ornate or pleasant oration that elaborates the divine events of the Shastras, or simply by discourses on sacred texts. He also cannot be realized by various arguments and reasoning, which are ultimately based on one's own opinions and intelligence. Repeatedly listening to a great deal of sacred texts by oneself also does not reveal the true nature of Paramatman. The need for grace. Paramatman Sahajananda is an ocean of compassion. Only those devotees he accepts, is pleased with, come to realize him. Paramatman reveals his divine form, makes himself realized to them, the devotees, Upasaka, who receive his divine compassion and affection. The nature of such realization establishes that Paramatman is not attainable by one's own conceived endeavors, but only by his grace. This same mantra is also found within the Katha Upanishad. This Paramatman is not attainable by the weak, by remissness, or by penance, which is not in accordance with the Shastras. The Atman of whoever wisely performs these endeavors enters Brahmadaman. Exposition. The relationship between grace and personal endeavor. Based on the previous mantra, it may seem as if endeavor is fruitless and wasted effort. To refute this claim, the Upanishad explains within this mantra that even though revelation is granted by Parabrahman, one should patiently engage in endeavor. The Upanishad reveals that Paramatman is unattainable by those who lack strength. Here, strength refers to both physical and mental resilience. If one lacks either of them, there is a chance of straying from the true path. Physical strength refers to, for example, being able to perform penance, engaging in service, and not becoming lethargic when ill. On the other hand, mental fortitude includes remaining composed and patient in adverse times. The mantra also asserts that Paramatman is not attainable by pramada. Pramada means remissness, to mentally falter from the path of becoming Brahmarupa, or to mentally waver. On the other hand, mental fortitude includes remaining composed and patient in adverse times. The mantra also asserts that Paramatman is not attainable by pramada. Pramada means remissness, to mentally falter from the path of becoming Brahmarupa, or to mentally waver from the goal of attaining Akshara and Purusattama. The Gurus define pramada as doing something other than what should be done. Paramatman is also unattainable by penance that is not in accordance with the conduct of one's social class or stage in life, Varna and Ashrama, as described in the Shastras. Thus, Paramatman is unattainable by those who disregard injunctions found within sacred texts and perform self-determined penance that is void of devotion and intended merely to emaciate the body. To summarize, there is no means to attain Paramatman for those who do not possess Brahma Vidya. Stated differently, Paramatman remains unattainable by those who do not realize both Akshara Brahman and Parabrahman. However, those who realize Akshara Purushotama, those who possess Brahma Vidya by associating with the Brahmasvarupa Guru and abiding by his teachings, and 2, who strive to practice the aforementioned endeavors, which include upholding truthfulness, listening to and delivering discourses, and engaging in penance according to the Guru's instructions, enter Brahmadaman. When Atma is read to refer to the aforementioned Param Atman, the mantra asserts that the above-mentioned devotees, Upashakas, enter Brahmadaman and attain Paramatman, who resides therein. Thus, all endeavors should be undertaken while realizing the manifest Akshara Brahman and Parabrahman. On attaining that Paramatman, they become realized, content with knowledge, fulfilled, desireless, and tranquil. Upon realizing the all-pervading Paramatman to be in all places, they who are wise become focused upon him and realize him to pervade things. Exposition. The virtues of attaining Paramatman. The Upanishad proceeds to describe the glory of attaining Paramatman. Devotees, Upasakas, who endeavor in the previously mentioned manner, ultimately attain Paramatman because of their firm association with the Brahmasvarupa Guru. Upon attaining Paramatman, they 1. Realize Brahma Vidya, 2. Become fulfilled with spiritual knowledge, 3. Are content by having attained Paramatman's manifest form, 4. Are freed from all desires to attain worldly pleasures, and thus 5. Remain peaceful. Such Brahmarupa devotees who are engrossed in Paramatman and whose understanding reflects the teachings of the Brahmasvarupa Guru realize Paramatman, who is all-pervasive and controls all from within, to be everywhere and within all. They become completely focused on the manifest Paramatman, become the yogis of Paramatman. In essence, through Paramatman's grace, they experience Paramatman as the Atman of all animate and inanimate existence. Those with conviction in the knowledge of the Upanishads possess self-control due to their renunciation and have a pure heart. When departing their body for the last time, they become free of desires and attain Paramatman's bliss within Brahmadaman. Exposition. Within this mantra, the Upanishad reiterates its revelation. It states that those devotees, 1. Who have entirely understood the principles of Vedanta, the Upanishads, Brahma Vidya, and 2. Who, upon renouncing all desires other than those related to Paramatman, are in control of their inner and outer faculties, and are hence pure-hearted. They, at the time of departing their worldly body for the very last time, become free from all mundane desires. The Upanishad's qualification, having entirely understood the principles of the Upanishads, means 1. To have understood from the teachings of the Brahmasvarupa Guru himself the true meaning of Brahma Vidya found within the Upanishads, and 2. To have therefore acquired firm conviction in the knowledge of Akshara Purushotama. Sannyasa Yoga may also be understood to refer to those who have surrendered everything to Paramatman. The Upanishad uses the term Parantakala. The time of death when an Atman leaves the worldly body is commonly referred to as Antakala. Such Antakala occurs in every birth the Atman endures. Since the bound self, Atman, repeatedly experiences the cycle of birth and death, any particular time of death cannot be identified as the final Antakala. Here, Parantakala, however, refers to the final or ultimate Antakala, which is necessarily preceded by liberation and after which no other Antakala ever remains. Upon attaining Brahmadaman, Parabrahmans, Brahmarupa devotees, Upasakas, experience the divine bliss of Paramatman Sahajananda, who is eternal and superior, Para, to the superior Akshara. The last portion of the mantra may also be read to assert that the aforementioned devotees are then freed from the repetitive cycle of birth and death and attain ultimate liberation. The plural form of Brahmaloka is used within the mantra to express reverence. Such usage is also seen elsewhere. The 15 kalas dissolve into their cause. All deities return from their locations. The remaining karmas and the knowledgeable Atman become engrossed in the indestructible Paramatman. Exposition. The analogy of rivers and the ocean. Here the Upanishad describes how the aforementioned Akshara Muktatman attains liberation. When the liberated Atman leaves its last body, 15 of its kalas dissolve. The Prashna Upanishad describes 16 kalas which are created by Paramatman and used by it to bound the Atman. Among these 16, 15, with the exception of karma, are merged into their respective originating elements. The kalas in the form of the body, water, and others are absorbed into the elements from which they arose. The deities, such as the sun, of the organs, such as the eyes, that reside within the locations of those organs, also renounce their positions and remain in their original forms. They no longer control the actions of their associated organs. The devotees Upasakas realized Atman, along with the karmas that have not borne fruit, all become one with the ultimate and indestructible Paramatman. This oneness does not assert that the self, along with its karmas, become ontologically one with Paramatman, but that they instead become immensely engrossed in Paramatman. Renouncing their mundane name and form, the self, along with its karmas, become engrossed in Paramatman. This mantra may alternatively be understood to express that upon attaining similarity to Brahman, the Atmans of realized devotees become engrossed in extreme love and devotion towards Parabrahman's divine form. Like flowing rivers lose their name and color and merge into the ocean, similarly the realized devotees lose their name and form and attain the divine Purusha, who is superior to the superior. Exposition. The Upanishad further elaborates the revelation presented in the previous mantra with an analogy. The mantra explains, when rivers merge into the ocean, they lose their individual qualities, including their name and color. For example, when rivers such as the Ganga, Godavari, or Narmada merge into the ocean, they lose their names as well as their dark or light color. One cannot tell the waters of the various rivers apart. Similarly, the Brahmarupa liberated Atman, who has realized Brahma Vidya by their association with the Brahmasvarupa Guru, foregoes its worldly name, such as Devadatta or Yajnadatta, and form, such as being male or female, and attains the divine Purusattama, who is superior to even the superior, Paratpara. Paratpara refers to that which is superior, Para, Purusattama, even to the superior, Parat, Akshara Brahman. The identification of Paratpara with Purusattama was previously discussed in the exposition of Hyaksharat Paratapara. Some falsely believe that when a bound Atman becomes liberated, it becomes ontologically one with Paramatman. More specifically, they believe that it is realized as ontologically one with Paramatman. This is incorrect. Those who advocate this position and interpret the analogy presented above to support their position do not understand the sentiments of the analogy. The position should therefore be rejected. The mantra utilizes the analogy as follows. Flowing water from the mountains is identified with various names, such as the Ganga, and recognized by their distinctive light or dark colors until it reaches the ocean. In the same manner, prior to attaining liberation, a bound Atman is known according to its name and form. However, when the same water of the river enters the ocean, it is overpowered by the features of the ocean. It loses its previous name and form and is no longer recognized by them. In the same manner, upon attaining Paramatman, By one's intense devotion and upasana, the liberated Atman becomes immersed in the ocean of supreme bliss of Paramatman. It is no longer known by its former name and form. In that state, the Atman attains a divine form that is similar to Paramatman's. It is crucial to recognize that merely entering something does not result in the destruction or abolition of one's identity. If that were the case, then when a person enters an assembly hall, their identity would be destroyed. However, this is not experienced. Also, it is not necessary that every feature of an analogy is to be reflected back to what is being analogized. Therefore, it should be understood that the intention of the mantra is only to express the elimination of name and form of the self, not the elimination of its being and identity. Furthermore, the use of the phrase Astam Gachanti to describe the sun setting in the west expresses that the sun is no longer visible, not that it is destroyed. If it were annihilated, then the sun would never rise again. Similarly, the term upayati means to attain. Its use suggests that there remains a difference between the attainer and that which is attained. Vyasa further elaborates the sustained ontological distinction between both entities within the mantra. Apivago vachanad. The term entering refers to becoming engrossed. It is analogized with how 1. A greedy person becomes engrossed in money, 2. A lover becomes engrossed with their partner, or how 3. A parent is extremely attached, engrossed to their child. One who realizes that superior Brahman, Akshara Brahman, becomes Brahmarupa. No one in their family is left ignorant of Brahman. They overcome grief and sin, and while becoming free of the shackles of the heart, they become immortal. Exposition. Brahmabhava, becoming like Brahman. A devotee who realizes, among others, the form, characteristics, virtues, and abilities of the superior, divine Akshara Brahman, by having firm association with the Brahmasvarupa Guru and imbibing his teachings, assuredly becomes Brahmarupa. The entity Akshara Brahman is described within the Upanishad, beginning with Parayaya Tadaksara Madhigamyate. It is described as superior according to Hayaksharat Parata, since it eternally possesses superior form, virtues, abilities, etc., than that of the Jivas, Ishvaras, Maya, and Akshara Muktas. It is identified as Brahman because it is immense or vast in size, and identified as such by mantras such as Tadatadaksharam Brahma. The grammatical congruence, samanadikaranya, seen here between the devotee and Brahman, expresses that the devotee attains qualities similar to those of Brahman that are necessary for practicing upasana towards Parabrahman. Here, samanadikaranya does not imply that both the self, Atman, and Brahman become or are revealed as one ontological entity. An objection. Some argue that the assertion, one who knows Brahman becomes Brahman, advocates that the self becomes one in form with Brahman. The self becomes ontologically one with Brahman. They reaffirm that the revelation cannot be interpreted figuratively, since doing so would contradict the use of the term eva, meaning indeed or truly, here. Thus, they contend that because of the term Eva, the term Atman indeed becomes one in form with Akshara Brahman, the self becomes ontologically one with Brahman. Furthermore, they reason that there are Shrutis such as Aham Brahmasmi, Ayamatma Brahma, and Brahma Sampadyate Tada that support this identification. They claim that since the grammatical congruence between the terms within these revelations and the subject and predicate nominative are defined to be equal, there is no ontological distinction between the self, Atman, and Brahman. They present examples of sentences such as 1. This pot is a water pot, and 2. This boy is a Brahmana, to demonstrate that these sentences express that 1. The pot is no different in form, svarupa, to the water pot, and that 2. The boy is not ontologically distinct from the referent of Brahmana. They claim that the above revelations from sacred texts and the present mantra should be interpreted in the same manner. Moreover, they maintain that revelations such as Brahmabhutam, Brahmabhuta, Brahmabhuyaya, and the notion of Brahmabhava, the experience of being Brahman, also suggest that the self, Atman, is ontologically one with Akshara Brahman. They substantiate that the term bhava is etymologically derived from the verbal root bhu, which means to become, an indication that the identification is ontological. Thus, they maintain that the revelation presented in the present mantra to be like the phrase Mudbhutogata, which describes a pot foregoing its form, shape, to once again become clay. They continue by pointing out that the term rupa is also often used to express ontological oneness. For example, the statement gata rupam dravyam expresses that the substance and the pot are ontologically one. They argue that the same type of identification should be understood to be expressed when the self, Atman, is described as being Brahmarupa. Similarly, the phrase gatatmakam dravyam also implies that the substance and the pot are one. Thus, Brahmatmana and other similar constructions also imply identity of form, svarupa. Furthermore, the term aikyam, oneness, in terms such as Brahmanaikyam, also establishes ontological oneness between the self, Atman, and Akshara Brahman, just as it exists between a pot and the water pot. Thus they reason Brahma Veda, Brahmaiva Bhavati, advocates oneness in form, svarupa, between the self, Atman, and Akshara Brahman. The response: the ontological identification argued for is founded on various fallacious arguments. The relationship expressed within the present mantra is not one of ontological identity, having the same form, svarupa, but rather of qualitative similarity, possessing similar qualities. Note, within the commentarial tradition, it is common for the commentator to first present the views that object to the principle advocated by the commentator. This presentation is identified as the Purvapaksha. The commentator thereafter systematically responds to each objection to establish one's own position, which is identified as the Siddhantapaksha. The commentator of this work follows the commentarial tradition by presenting the Purvapaksha and then countering each of the arguments posed. The commentator begins his response by first summarizing the various uses of grammatical congruence and the term one. Thereafter, he explains how these usages apply to the statements in question. The commentary explains, it is common for words like ekha, one, to be also used to express possessing similar qualities. Consider the statement, the Brahmanas in the royal family became one. The oneness of the Brahmanas expressed cannot indicate a oneness of their form, svarupa. Instead, it implies the oneness of opinion. They all possess the same view, and hence are one. One may also refer to being in the same place. Consider ekibhavanti, a term used to express, for example, that 1. The cows gather in the cowshed in the evening, 2. The birds gather on a branch, or 3. That devotees gather in the mandir. One may also be used to express the abandonment of a grudge or ill will. For instance, consider the expression, these two countries have become one. One may also express extreme friendship between two parties. For example, within the Ramayana, Hanumana states to Sita, Rama Sugriva Yoraikyam, to express the unity between Rama and Sugriva. One may refer to being of the same class or kind. For instance, these books are one, the same. These pots are one, the same. And these rice are one, the same. All use one to express categorical similarity. From these examples, it is evident that being one is not solely used to express ontological identity, but may imply a variety of semantics. What is the intended meaning of the oneness expressed between the self, Jivatman and Ishvaratman, and Akshara Brahman? Qualitative similarity. The oneness expressed in the mantra is in reference to the self-acquiring qualities that are similar to those of Akshara Brahman. Through the grace of the manifest Akshara Brahma Svarupa Guru and his association, the self attains certain qualities that are like those of Akshara Brahman. Furthermore, due to the one's close association with Akshara Brahman, the spiritual aspirant comes to reflect and understand things in a way that is similar to Akshara Brahman. For example, the Atman who has attained such oneness with Akshara Brahman comes to possess conviction in Paramatman like Akshara Brahman. Just as Akshara Brahman, they come to have convictions such as, I am undefiled, I am not the body, and I am above the three qualities, gunas of Maya. Being in the same location, this oneness also expresses being within the same location, as revealed in mantras such as Sosnute Sharvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschita. The liberated Atman is within the same location as the servant form of Akshara Brahman. They both reside within Parabrahman's divine abode, Akshara Daman, possessing Brahma Bhava. Furthermore, being engulfed in Maya and believing oneself to be the body both hinder Brahma Bhava, the experience of being Brahman. When these two are removed, the Atman attains Brahma Bhava, becomes like Akshara Brahman. This is what is implied by the phrase Brahma Sampadyate Tada, intense adoration. When oneness between the Atman and the manifest Akshara Brahma Svarupa Guru is interpreted as it was in the example of Rama and Sugriva presented earlier, it expresses the self as possessing intense association with Akshara Brahman and as continually engaged in adoration, full contemplation of him. As a result, realization attained through constant recollection or through strong attachment may be articulated as having oneness with Akshara Brahman. Thus, the sole intent of revealing Aikya, oneness, between the Atman and Akshara Brahman is to express qualitative similarity acquired by the self, not to express ontological identity. Summary: the above discussion on the various semantic ascriptions of oneness may be summarized as, due to similarity in thought, type, qualities, location, time, spiritual state, and other features, as well as by friendship and inseparability, things, though distinct, are yet identified as one. In the same manner, although jivas and ishvaras are distinct entities, they, possessing qualities that are similar to those of Brahman, they are identified as being one with Brahman. The true intention of Samanadikaranya. It was argued earlier that the Samanadikaranya grammatical congruence in mantras such as Aham Brahmasmi and Ayamatma Brahma demonstrates ontological identity as it does in Gatoyam Kalasha. This, however, is not the case. Samanandikaranya is also used to express two distinct things as having similar attributes. The word sandharmya, similarity, refers to having similar characteristics and is defined as being ontologically different, yet possessing many characteristics that are the same. This practice of using samandikaranya to express qualitative similarity is common. For instance, it is expressed within Simho Manavaka, the lion child. In this example, both terms, Simha and Manavaka, are in the nominative case. However, the phrase does not assert that the child is a lion in form, Svarupa. Instead, it states that the child is lion-like. It possesses some characteristics, such as courage, that are like that of a lion.